Hello, today I'm going to have a chat about the language of Ogham, and I'm going to take a deep dive into it, explaining from my perspective what it is and what I've learned, right? And I'm going to be explaining it as well from the perspective of sovereignty, like what I've spoken about in previous videos. Like true sovereignty is our connection to the land, right? And as you're going to learn here now, as well, that's a spiritual thing. Connecting to the land is a very spiritual thing to do with sovereignty, right? So I'm going to be explaining Ogham from the perspective of the language of sovereignty, a sovereign language, because it's a language, a deep language of the understanding of nature itself, right? And how nature communicates and how ancient societies in Ireland try to live in a way of actually live in a way of harmony with nature, seeing nature itself as like a divine teaching, as if like created, yeah, just a divine teaching. I just keep it at that to keep it simple, right? So hopefully I'm at a point now where you can see a picture in the corner of an ohm grove, right? The ohm alphabet, right? And I'm going to explain the alphabet from a perspective of like today we've mathematics and algebra. This was like an old form of algebra, really, because there's parts of it like astrology, mathematics, nature, lunar cycles and all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm just going to get straight into it, right? So as you can see as well from the Ohm calendar in the corner, that there's 13 trees, right? So the trees are seen as the most powerful plants, the most important parts of plant life, right? Because they're what clean the air, clean the soil, all of the above, right? And basically, you're looking at a sustainable calendar, is what it is. We talk about sustainable energy, all of the above, right? So you have 13 trees, right? First and foremost. And how this works is there's 13 moon, it's said to be 13, the lunar cycles of the year, you have 13 moons a year, right? So a different tree is more fertile or conscious due to the water crystallization of the tree in synchronicity with the moon. So the moon has an effect over let's say, the liquid system of the planet, right? Which affects plant life, this, that, the other. So different trees are more fertile or conscious due to the water crystallization of a tree in synchronicity with the moon. What that means is different trees and plants are going through different fertility. They're going through a fertility cycle, right? So you can see exactly what tree is most fertile at different times. It's like a calendar, like looking at nature as your calendar itself, right? In it as well, you'll see all the different, let's say, the north, east, south, west, solstice, equinox, all that kind of stuff are all engraved in it, right? So, like, um, yeah, that this would be the understanding of an ohm grove, right? You plant it, and also with stone circles, they have all different alignments, so we can understand. We can get a deeper understanding of the consciousness of the planet itself, right? So again, you've 13 different trees, and these 13 trees would be correlated to astrology too as well, right? They would also be correlated to different um, mythology figures in Irish culture, so it can be used as with oracle value too as well, right? Obviously, there's a medicinal value too when you look at herbal medicine. So in the Irish understanding of that through Ogham as well, so it's about the fertility and the timing of taking these medicines, different times of year. So you'd make teas from different trees and all of the above, right? So again, I'm looking at this from the perspective of language too as well. And I'm going to get into the sound of letters, all of the above, right? And please, you're going to have a lot of questions. Please ask this, right? Again, we're getting a deep look into the psychology of ancient Irish people and how advanced they were and how advanced their psyche was of looking at nature and all of the above. Because for them, we look at religion looks at God, right? God from the skies above, right? But the ancient societies of Ireland also believe nature itself. They seen that as the goddess, right? So you needed both, is what they looked at. And like our destiny is governed by the land, so they lived in honor and reverence of the land, and that's why the language comes from trees, right? You'll also know it's a druidic language, right? So to get an understanding of historically what a druid is or anything like that, you really need to look at the language of the alphabet, the Ogham alphabet, in order to get an understanding of the psychology of this. These people would have been very, very spiritual, very holy people. They would see kind of divinity in all things, um, very much so, right? So again, let's get deeper into it. You've 13 trees that correlate to the moon, the cycles of the moon, right? So different tree is more fertile or conscious due to the water crystallization of tree in synchronicity with the moon, right? And as you see from the first tree as well, these trees are not just about, let's say, oh, we want to know the timing of the year. It's more deeper than that. So its leaves what would build up the layers of soil. So this is an alphabet of how to build soil, the structure of soil. And the ancient societies of Ireland seen soil itself as what sustains the life of all of us, right? And when you think of it, you're also buried back into the soil in the afterlife, right? So the early Irish societies believed that, like, when we are planted back into the ground when we die, right? When we break back down into mycelial format, right? So the mycology, and they believe that our brain it functions the same as a mushroom as well, right? So they seen the land itself as nearly like that's where we go afterwards, nearly like the afterlife, right? So that's how much they honored the land because it's where your ancestors went. It's the home. It's where you're going to, right? So the healthier we have a land and ecological environment, the better it is for you to transition into whatever next world you believe you're going to. But they just honor the cycles of life, right? And the cycles of your mind, because your mind is also correlated to the cycles of nature, right? So you can build soil through using an understanding of the Ogham alphabet through different leaves and stuff like that, right? Obviously, when you get into, let's say people get into farming, get into healing land and stuff, and what people are learning as well today, if you're going to be, let's say, growing a lot of crops in your back garden, what you do is you get a big barrel and put the leaves of native trees into it, right? And then when the rain fills up that barrel, leave it tea for a while. And through that tea, you can pour that tea on your land and you can begin to restore the actual DNA, the native DNA of your land, your back garden, everything, to give it the proper nutrition and even information and coding to grow whatever it is you are looking to grow, right? So again, every tree correlates to every letter correlates to a tree, and it's believed as well that the Irish language itself holds the coding of the universe, right? And there's an advanced knowledge and wisdom, deep wisdom in the Irish language. And I'm going to get deeper into it now as well for you, right? So when we get into Ogham, you look at, let's say you have an Ogham stone, and you have a language, you have a line, and you've these things coming out, do, 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 do. If you catch that and turn it to its side, it's actually the language of music, sound, vibrational frequency. All of that. So English language is the language of spelling. So you could have a word that sounds completely different to what it's spelled. And that made no sense to ancient Irish society. So when we look at the sound of words, that's the most important part, and that is Ogham. For example's sake, people talk to me, they'd say the word beautiful or something like that. So the word beautiful to me, through an understanding of Ogham, would be full, right? So let's say when we look at the sound of the letters, and where do the sound of the letters come from? Oh, that's a beautiful thing because again, water and liquid connects everything of life. It also connects all of the trees, right? And through the liquid system, all the plants grow, all of the above, right? So when we look at the sound of the letters of Ogham, what you do is you get, let's say, whatever tree is most fertile or conscious at the moment. If you look at the sort of water in the tree is very important, right? And we look at the molecular structure of water inside in that tree. We know today that water holds memory, it's a spiritual thing, whatever, but we also know that it holds a crystallized format, and that crystallized format would also hold a harmonic, a sound harmonic. And that sound harmonic will be the sound of that letter when you magnify it, right? So the Ogham alphabet was the sound and language of nature itself, right? Also, different trees produce different oxygens and stuff like that, right? So they believe that you can code whole environments, not just above the ground, but also below the ground, right? So different tree, like, think of it, for example's sake, if I plant an acorn in the ground, right? The acorn technically is like a manifestation of the tree. It brings the oak together and all that kind of stuff, right? But if I plant an acorn in the ground, what is it that grows that tree? Where does the tree come from? All that wood, what's happening? Think of it this way, right? Think of it like an acorn, like a memory stick of a computer, right? So when I don't plant trees, I plug them in. If you've been with Ted Cook or the Woodland League, you will know about this, right? So you plant an acorn into the ground. So you're putting the intelligence of the oak tree into the ground, right? So that changes the structure of the soil and gives the soil coding in order how to grow properly. And think of it this way, like a thyroid. like the top of the tree, oxygen, all of that, and below is very same when we go to mycelium and mycorrhizal fungi and all of the above, the fungal system. So think of a tree like a thyroid. Think of a tree like a sustainable energy force, and that's what it is, right? So trees can be used through coding then to perfect soil format, because different trees would have different functions, different formats, all of the above, right? And underneath the ground, the trees will communicate through fungal format. That's where they send information, all of the above, right? So it's an advanced language in how to purify and perfect ecological systems in nature and all of that, and also us and our human mind and how our subconsciousness is communicating with nature and stuff all the time, right? Some people then, you look at let's say, different trees would have different fungal formats underneath, right? Different mushrooms will grow, and these different mushrooms will correlate to different parts of your brain too as well, right? So some people, we like the future of medicine is you looking at different mushrooms and fungal formats and stuff like that as a means of curing your brain. But like in Ireland, there's people in different shamanic traditions would take, let's say, ayahuascas or whatever. In Ireland, it was more mushroom based, right? So like I'm not getting into magic mushrooms. I'm getting into a different way of looking at mushrooms to heal your brain and stuff like that. There are different types of mushrooms as well, where when you take the mushroom, like, yes, underneath the ground, trees communicate through fungal format, and they call that the wood wide web and all that kind of stuff, whatever, right? And that this is programming. So through that you learn how nature communicates with everything, and that's the foundations of Brehon law, of how everything functions together, all of the above, right? But through using this fungal format, you can understand how the web of nature works underneath the ground. But there's different mushrooms as well, where when you take them at night time, then you'll see how trees communicate. Like this mycorrhizal and this mycology is also above the ground, and how trees communicate and all of that. We just don't see it through our perception, but through different states of consciousness, you can begin to look at all this and learn a lot from it. Also with the Ogham grove that you see in the corner as well, right? A different tree is more fertile or conscious due to the water crystallization of the tree in synchronicity with the moon, right? So if you stand in the middle of an own grove, if you plant an own grove and you stand in the middle of an own grove, right, and it's properly aligned, you will see that during the daytime, the moon is exactly over that tree. When you have it properly aligned and properly a point of focus right in the middle, right, where you can align and things for, the moon will be directly over the tree that's most fertile or conscious at the moment. But what we've realized as well is at night time, when it gets to about 1 o'clock in the morning, the moon just does something mad. The moon makes sense to me during the daytime. But at nighttime, it's because when you have a point of reference, you can watch it. It just disappears for a couple hours and then comes back, right? It's just I don't know what that is all about, but that's part of it. But the Ogham Grove would be perfection of all of that kind of stuff, right? Also, let's see, like, yes, again, you can perfect air consciousness, all that kind of stuff. Different trees produce different forms of oxygen and all of that, purifying air, purifying the ground. That's what they are. They were seen as like the hospitals of the previous generations of Ireland, right? And it was all about strengthening of land and all of that, right? So the moon will go to 5 different points across their 13 moon cycle. It will go to 5 different points, right? And that's where you'd have the understanding of, let's say, the 5 pointed star. And some people say if it goes one way, it's good. If it goes the other way, it's bad. This is just nature, lads. That's all perception and stuff like that. So the 5 points, and interesting enough too, when an oak tree grows, right, the first 5 leaves of an oak tree will point to exactly those 5 places. You know what I mean? So these are understandings of nature and all of the above, right? So again, the Ogham language and it's all about sound, frequency, harmonics, nature, and you can fine tune to the sound of all these different plants, right? So today you can get these equipment, right? It's a kind of a sound equipment where you can pin it to a tree, and it will give you the sound of the harmonic of that tree and all of that, and you can get into all the sound of, which is incredible. But that was the old ancient language of Ireland, Ogham. And again, this is about sovereignty and communicating and learning about lands and nature and all of you. I love it because nature to me is it's like an extension of my mind. So again, in early Irish understanding, they believe that Your mind is not internal, your mind is external, right? And that's why you can really begin to get into healing your mind through mental health and all of the above, right? And they believe seeing your mind as internal was actually a form of conflict within yourself. So it's external, right? That's why in Irish language, you don't, you wear your emotions. They're on the outside of you. You wear them because they're only temporary. They're only going through you at a certain time. You know what I mean? So again, I'm explaining this through sovereignty and a connection to the land. And people had such a connection to the land. When this sovereignty raises in people, you just become an honor and aware and in awe of nature itself, you know? And that's what bred the Ogham alphabet. Om. That's what bred all of that. And again, as I was saying, like we talk about the tribal structures of Ireland, this is what they live their life in harmony with, like the language of nature itself. And if we want to really begin to heal the world and we need to communicate in these processes again, right? People talk about, let's say, the environmental problems of the world. If you want to solve that, you just sit down and talk to a man called Ted Cook. He'll tell you all the solutions. We need to just listen to him. But these are people who understand that your brain is also part of your ecosystem, right? And part of learning from it. So the Ogham alphabet, again, it's a language of mycology too as well. People look at Paul Stamets, right? And his amazing understanding of, let's say, the mushroom kingdom, the fungal mushroom kingdom, and underneath the ground and stuff like that. So Ogham is also used in code, right? And code, we can code soil, code land. And you obviously with the symbolism as well, it was how early monks in Ireland were able to communicate with each other through code, and nobody understood what they were saying except themselves, right? And this was part of the Book of Ballymote. If you look at this, look at a very deep cipher code, and these symbols in Ogham as well also correlate to your subconscious mind. So communicating through symbolism and all of this, and that's happening today anyway. When you look at, let's say, marketing, you walk past somewhere like Burger King or a signpost saying lovely burger here, whatever, and you're like, I'm hungry, I need a burger. These are all communicating to you anyway. So if you don't understand this, you're easily being manipulated by the world, you know what I mean? And I suppose you can look at from an own perspective. The word government, to govern, meant, govern means to have legal authority over something. Ment is the Latin word mentis, meaning your mind. Government means governing your mind. Therefore, then if you look at political parties, they're more or less marketing companies, right? And they're marketing the minds of people for their own benefit. It's all like, so we need to go back to our own sovereignty, right? Your own sovereignty in you and how you communicate properly with the world around you, and to stop yourself from being manipulated. Again, that's why, like, let's say sovereignty in Ireland, when you develop a relationship with the land, right? The land that you're from, right? And this is what all kingship is from. Kings are claiming to be the steward of the land for the people underneath them. But in Ireland, we're all sovereign. It's about that communication with the land, right? And honoring the land. And no matter what God you believe in, you respect all divinity by respecting the land that gives everybody, sustains everybody's life, you know, and that's what it's about, right? Um, so we've an amazing history when it comes to all of that kind of stuff, right? So again, hold whatever religious belief you or spiritual belief you want, but land is very important to everybody, and we're lucky. Look how beautiful it is in Ireland, right? um so I'm just giving you an understanding of that. So again, look at solstice, equinoxes, movements of the sun. This has all got to do with nature, and how we begin to understand nature and our own environment is how we prevent ourselves from being manipulated by external forces and all of the above, right? So the language of Ogham is very important. And again, the through Ogham, being the powerful plants and all of that kind of stuff, you can get into understanding herbal medicine from a very different perspective. All Chinese medicine on the planet goes back to a thing called the Tocharian B medical manuscripts, which were the Tocharians. So the most advanced, the most academically acclaimed professor on the Tocharians is a guy called Malloy from Copenhagen, right? And he now says everything that we've learned about the Tocharians is nonsense. The only thing that now makes sense through actual history is that they were just monks who came from Ireland and went for a wander. The word Tocharian, Tochar means orchard, the people of the orchard, the people of the thinking of nature, right? Now, when we get into all of that, who gave us the Ogham alphabet and language, and which evolved to become the native Irish alphabet? But when they try to take sovereignty away from the people of Ireland and other countries claiming to be sovereign and all that kind of stuff, that's when they had to try disconnect Ogham from the Irish alphabet, right? Because it's a very important language to have within us, right? And again, sovereignty is about our connection to the land. Um, that's who we are, right? So again, the Tocharian monks, it's about that's druidic, that's all of the above. Nature, people of nature, that's all that means, right? The knowledge of nature is all that means, right? And also, it was like again, when people talk about I spoke a bit about it before in a previous video, but it's like Buddhism. Nobody goes around saying that they're Buddha, but you would say there's a bit of Buddha in him and respect all of that. That's all that's about, right? But it's about we need to go back living in harmony with our own environment and land and all of the above, right? Any questions on this, please ask. This is only an introduction to it. We'll get into the mythology of it as well in a while. The astrology of it is incredible too as well. There's many aspects to it. But this is how nature communicates, right? The sound of it is very important. That's why we say he sound, man. So thank you for watching the video. It's a lovely place to have a video like this, and just to give you an introduction to it, but this will be seen as a language of sovereignty and communicating with nature. And I'm only making these videos to help improve the sovereignty in you, right? And develop your relationship with the very land that you come from, right? And the beauty of it, and I see it daily. I see it blessed to be able to see the world like this. So thank you very much for your time. Any questions, ask, and have a look at the calendar. And there's a lot more to it. And again, we're going to be getting into this over time. Thank you so much.